Welcome to Psychic Girls Next Door. We are your hosts, Lili
and Shannon Miller. This podcast is for all spirituality enthusiasts and psychics next door to share tools, experiences, and spiritual practices that align with your highest vibrational self.
So on this episode, we are going to be talking about spirit guides and what are they, our experiences, and how to connect with them. So basically, spirit guides, they're beings without bodies. And they come like in different shapes, size, and different forms, voices. They come through visions, and they always vibrate at a higher than human frequency. And so you can also think of them as maybe like a light beings, maybe energy, or just souls that have made their way to a higher plane.
Some belief systems maintain that you're assigned to a specific team or like spirit guide team at birth, while others believe that guides come and go as you need them to throughout your lifetime. So we're going to talk today about how, what are our personal experiences with spirit guides? And Lily, I would love to know, when did you first connect with your spirit guides? Like, when did you first come to realize that you had spirit guides and you were able to actually communicate and get information from them?
Yeah, so the first time that I realized that I had spirit guides, but I actually didn't know they were spirit guides. I found out many years later. But looking back, when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, I think. That's the first time that I recall having an experience where I could hear them. And the way that I heard was through this, it was almost when metal gets crushed, or you're trying to kind of push it through plastic, hard plastic, and makes that really squeaky noise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really weird noise that I would hear. And when I was at that age, I was sharing the room with my sister, and I was like, "Do you hear that? What is that?" And then I would turn on the lights, and everything was normal. And my sister would be like, "I don't hear anything. What are you talking about?" Mm-hmm. Then I would go back to sleep, and I would hear that noise again. And I was like, and I thought I was either crazy or I was terrified. Mm-hmm. And that was also a time that, that was back in the 80s, when you would watch horror movies and no one really,
Poltergeist?
Yeah, Poltergeist. Yeah, it's all this really weird,
yeah,
the classic horror movies. And I remember watching them, and I remember making the connection between the horror movies and what I was hearing and kind of having this, especially at nighttime.
Yeah.
And I thought these were evil spirits or ghosts, but I never told anyone. And I would go to bed and I would just pray that that those noises wouldn't show up again and that I would not hear them. So I basically I shut down at that age. But as I've mentioned in prior episodes, that I grew up in a very diverse religious family, and my nanny, that she was part of this African religion called Candomblé, and that was very much based on spirit guides and deities. That's what they believed. And so they believe that each person is assigned to a specific spirit guide. And so she used to tell me that my spirit guide was the certain spirit guide. And it was a female and looked a certain way. And that we had to, build an altar for that guide. And then we had to bring offerings, that guide likes certain foods and all of that. And I took it very seriously.
It's very New Orleans too.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much.
There's a lot of that in New Orleans.
Yeah, but
altars.
but Latino culture, this is really common and popular, where especially if you're a curandera, or in that realm where you honor, and then you have all these rituals that you do, and so they kind of they do dances and offerings and prayers and all this stuff. So she taught us all of this. And she would also tell us like, oh, so don't forget, you have to bring or eat this blah blah blah, or this piece of fruit, or make this type of food in order to honor this specific spirit guide. And I took it very seriously.
Oh yeah.
You had to make offerings. So I have to buy like roses that were related to the spirit guide and like throw it in the ocean. So there were like all this sort of stuff that we did,
Like rituals to appease them.
yeah, kind of like to really like connect with the spirit guide. So I grew up a lot in that belief system.
Yeah.
And it's like a very cultural thing. I remember when that was back in 2007, 2006. I can't remember. This was more than almost 20 years ago. I also mentioned too in previous episodes that I've dated a guy that also had psychic abilities. And I remember when I started dating him, and that's when I would finally actually see them, like in my dreams. And I probably I've seen them in my dreams, but I never made a connection, but when that happened, it was very vivid. And I remember sometimes I would see them even with my eyes open, like, when you wake up from your sleep and you're kind of like a little, half conscious, half unconscious.
Yeah.
And I would see them. And I remember telling him, I was like, hey, I saw this. And he's like, oh, but these are your spirit guides. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And because I didn't know what I know today.
So
but
kind of like validated that level of awareness.
Yeah, so I thought it was very fascinating. So that was kind of like my initial contact with spirit guides and how it influenced, my belief system with spirit guide. But my relationship and my beliefs around that, it has evolved throughout the years. As I went deeper into spirituality, and I started learning about other practices and other modalities, and then we went into our meditation clairvoyant training. That's really when I honed in into getting to know my spirit guide and developing this relationship, because I just had no idea what it was, and how it looked like, and how to even connect with them. I had no clue. But then I realized that the relationship with my spirit guide, it's a relationship just like any other relationship.
It's almost like a relationship with an extension of yourself.
It's just someone that is there just to that's the name. It guides you, But it was really cool to actually see it through my mind's eye.
Yeah.
So the way that I, as of today, as a psychic, I'm able to pick up on the energy of people's spirit guides and my own spirit guide. It comes either when I'm in meditation, sometimes I will get a feeling, I feel the energy. Sometimes I hear this very loud ringing in my ear, and that's when I know there is a spirit guide. Because they're on a different frequency.
Yeah.
So it kind of you hear that, I hear that. And especially at nighttime, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And now I'm also able to recognize and see them, especially in my dreams.
Yeah.
Because they're in the astral plane. So it's easier for them to communicate. So this is basically my experience in a nutshell. Of my
no, that's great.
how they came into my life and how I came to realize, that they're a very important part of my team.
Yeah.
My spiritual team.
Oh, I think you are so in tune with them. I don't know if you've been able to do that. It sounds like you've had abilities to do that forever, but from the readings that I've gotten from you and just knowing you, and you'll just pick up on this, that, and the other, even if you're not reading anybody. You'll just know that there's a bunch of guides in the room, and you'll know what they look like, what messages. You're a very clear conduit for that information to come through.
Thank you. Yeah. It's really strange, because it's almost they're like, oh, there's an opening here.
Yeah.
I just want to
We
come
can talk
through.
to her. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just open.
Yeah.
Like, let's tune in into this radio frequency, and sometimes it comes through, and sometimes I don't even like know, like what I've just said, because the spirit guides, like, I think they just probably use me as the facilitator.
Yeah.
For that information.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. But what about you? How did you first, learn of your spirit guides?
That's a good question. So I know I never like see them directly, but as soon as you kind of bring my attention to them when you read, I know exactly who you're talking about. I know, like, I can feel their energy, and I can feel like the information that they might portray. A lot of my guides are like fairies or aliens, as of lately. But I've had, like, my grandma has popped up, who she died on Halloween, like when I was 15. And I think, anyone who has passed away on Halloween, it's like a portal. She comes back, and when I was doing the clairvoyant program, she would come into readings, and I think I have, like, sometimes I feel like I have mufflers on my ears when it comes to spirit guides. Like, I've been able to hear, like, the high-pitched ringing, and I can tell what type of entity it is since I was little. And so being able to, like, know, like, oh, that's a ghost of, like, somebody who's died. That's an angel. That's another entity. Oh, that's, like, a demon spirit on, trying to, like, integrate or, like, maybe, like, body hop with somebody or match with somebody, like, living. So I've been able to kind of discern what type of entities are, like, floating around in my space forever. But in terms of, like, actually getting the tangible information I need for the advice that I need for, like, this present moment, I still, to this day, it is a challenge for me to receive those types of messages. Typically, when I do receive them, it's like they're very in my ear. Like, it's like, you need to listen to me, and you need to listen to me now, and you need to interpret this. And I think, like, for me to channel my spirit team, it helps for me to do tarot. I use that as a conduit for them to guide me. And, like, I have a pendulum. I call her Rose Lee. If anyone's seen the musical Gypsy, you will know exactly who I'm talking about, because it's a rose quartz pendulum. And I'll clear my cards with a selenite wand, and then I'll lay them out. And sometimes I'll, like, shuffle, and whatever flies out, it's like my spirit guides kind of doing their thing behind the scenes, letting cards kind of fly out. But sometimes when I do, like, spread them out completely on a table, I'll take the pendulum, and then I will physically feel someone else guiding my arm, and I will feel someone stopping me from moving to other cards in the spread, and I'll be like, oh, this is the one I need. And I'll call them in. And I've gotten another reading from a woman named Wendy, who I found on TikTok. And she said that I channel Lilith when I am reading tarot cards. And it's the Wild Unknown tarot deck. It's my favorite deck. And that's usually one where I, like, let it fly out. And she's like, yeah, Lilith is one of your guides. And I totally feel that. I connect with that.
Is that like the fairy?
The queen of the underworld, Lilith, like Satan's wife in some lore. And
allegedly,
yeah. So, but for me, I'm like, I am very attracted to dark energy. It explains why I feel connected to the spirit, but I'm also very looking at it very neutrally, because I like, there's good and evil. There's, different types of polarities, right? But then it's a spectrum of, like, everything in between. And I think I'm fascinated with the spectrum. The dark energy doesn't really scare me because I'm so light. So I see that when I do call in Lilith, usually it's like information that people need to know. And I think, like, the negative stereotypes about different gods or goddesses or entities and from folklore, I mean, it's like a celebrity, right? Like, there's different, if you think of Taylor Swift, like, she's a person, but she has, like, negative stories about her, negative aspects and, you know, people's perspectives. And then there's also positive aspects about her. And like, you know, people have like, you know, the whole Taylor Nation, like all of her fans, like she wouldn't have a fan base if like she wasn't likable in that sense. So there is that duality that exists.
Just like all of us.
Yeah, just like all of us. So like we all have a spectrum of like shadow and light. And I think like for me to connect to Lilith, I thought that was so cool. And I'm not afraid of it. I have no fear when it comes to like, you know, even thinking about Hades and like, you know, different types of folklore. I'm so fascinated with that.
Yeah, well, spirit guides are not here to harm us in any way.
Not in any way.
But as you know, as you were talking about this, spirit guides, they communicate in so many different forms.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna come sit next to you and say, "Hey,
no,
you have to do this and this and this." I think
right.
the way they communicate is that it can be very subtle.
Yeah.
And they can communicate it so many different ways. You know, either you're seeing symbols, it might come through people, it might come through dreams. I mean, it's just like endless ways that they can communicate with us. And you were talking about like how when you're reading tarot and this particular guide comes through.
Yeah.
I also believe that we all have more than one spirit guide.
Yeah.
We have a team of guides because honestly, like to navigate through this physical world, you do need a support team. But I think that a lot of guys, they have different roles for different things that we do in this lifetime.
Absolutely.
I have seen people that have like, you know, abilities or qualities about them, and there is like a very specific guide
who shows up
and guides them in that sense. So just kind of like piggybacking on this topic. So we do make an agreement with the spirit guide before we take this physical body.
Yeah, on a soul level.
On a soul level, there's a soul agreement. And this agreement, you probably made it. It could have been from many lifetimes ago. It could be from this lifetime. There's different goals and different assignments, different intentions that go into this agreement. Some of these agreements might be in past time, because maybe that guide came in to help you and guide you with some issue, but it doesn't really translate into present time.
Yeah.
So there's also this type of situation that can happen too.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, it's hard for me to see them for myself. Maybe that's a picture that I have in my space. But when I'm reading other people and when I've read other people in the past, it's so easy for me to see their guides because they show up as like little cartoon figures in their space. And like, you know, I am talking about Lilith. I'm not meaning to scare anybody and like, you know, take my information with a grain of salt. I have a very neutral perspective and I feel like I channel her when I need her. And it's only really in that situation where I'm using that specific tarot deck because she likes the pictures and like the artwork. So Kim Kranz, if you're listening to this or ever will, she's appealed, or you know, she's appeased. Not that was the goal, but I think like different guides show up for different situations based on like what you are calling in and what you might need guidance or help with, or like, you know, for me, when I'm in a work environment and I need help with like how to navigate a certain social situation, I have a very masculine guide that I know for sure is like helping me through, because he shows up on my right side. He's very high pitched and it's very dense energy. I'm like, oh, this feels very masculine.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of validate you for just being able to tune in with this guy, because you just like mentioned that you can't, or you feel like that you don't communicate with your guy, but just getting a sense of it.
Getting a sense. I'm more of a sensor.
Yeah.
Like it feels
so it's just like you have this awareness that there is guidance that you don't even know where it's coming from.
Right.
But it's there.
Right. And like guides will send messages in songs or movies. Yep. Like I've been seeing I'll see like certain actors like all of a sudden it'll be like the synchronicities of like I think we were watching a show yesterday and we watched a few different movies like over the weekend, and like it was the same actor was in all of them, and I'm like, feels like I need to look into this, like, so, and I don't know what information that really is going to apply to me, but maybe something will kind of be like, oh, it might be an aha moment, or it might just be like kind of like a universal funny, like the universe kind of like messing with you, like, let me just like give you like 3 movies where you think this random actor is going to be in all 3 of these movies and you don't even really realize it. But when I am reading other people, their guides are more prominent, and maybe it's because I'm neutral. I'm not really seeking their advice for myself.
Yeah, because you don't let your own information
right
get in the way of seeing their guides. And again, like, you're in a different frequency.
True.
Because when you are reading other people's energy, you are, in a meditative state. So you're kind of like the clear channel. That facilitates information for people. But another way that I find it interesting is that my guides also communicate with me through dreams. So whoever's listening, so do pay attention to your dreams. Who shows up? How do they look like? And you will know it. Like you get a sense.
Yeah.
That
they don't feel like they're part of if you dream about like normal world stuff, like your day transferring into your dream, like they'll pop up and they'll be like part of the dreamscape, but they won't actually be like someone you actually know in this realm.
Yeah, but you will know it. You'll get a sense of it. You just know that they are there. But just know it also that spirit guides, they will give you options. So it's never like a black and white like thing, like, oh, we're guiding you have to go down this path and that's our way or their way. They only come here as a consultant, so they just come and guide you, and they're going to show you different options. But we do have free will.
Oh, yeah.
To make the choices.
You can learn things
the harder way.
Or be like, oh, well, that's one way to learn through that.
Yeah. Or the easier way.
Right.
So you're going to be presented with different options and then decide what it is that you're going to choose. And again, like, just imagine the amount of work that a spirit guide has in our lives. When I look at it, I'm like, gosh, like, my spirit guide probably drinks because...
Do they really need to redo this situation?
Just like, girl, again.
I thought you already learned that.
Like,
we've been through this before.
Gosh, like, she's not listening.
Yeah.
I find it kind of, I make fun of it, but, our lives, it's not one-dimensional. It's very complex. So there's many different pieces that come together for things to actually like manifest in this physical plane. So just imagine the amount of work that they have with things that happen in our lives. So say, for example, you make a decision today, and that's going to take your life a certain route. So whatever it is, they're going to kind of assist you to make sure that you kind of like fit in and everything in that path that you kind of decided to go on, that, everything else, they're there, that's going to be supportive.
This is actually a good like thing for me to hear, because I literally do access my guides, now that I think about it, in more of a practical situation, to find a parking spot. I think this is a good use of like how you can call in your guides if you've never called them in. It's a very like low stakes type of situation, right? When you're like out and you're trying to find a parking spot. We live in San Francisco, so if I'm trying to go to the Mission, parking can be a nightmare, right? Until it doesn't have to be. When you call in your parking fairies, I call that mine show up as fairies. That's just very, matching with my energy. They can be any type of guide, but I call them in and I'm like, hey, please help me find a parking spot. And I find a parking spot like 99% of the time. And then I notice that when I'm with somebody else in the car, if they don't tap into that energy as well, I feel like sometimes I might not find a parking spot as quickly as we could have if I was just driving by myself. I don't know if that's just a picture but that's something that I've noticed. And like, so, I mean, it's helpful to have everybody call in their parking fairies to help you find a parking spot. But what are like some of the like practical ways that you typically call in your guides to help you out with like, day-to-day things?
Just having a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it as just having, and again, as I've mentioned, it's just like a relationship that you have with them, but you also have to develop that relationship with your spirit guides. And the first thing that I would suggest is to create a way that works for you, that in a way that you're open. So you have to be open.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You have to be open to receive information or guidance or signs.
And help.
Yeah.
Believing that you deserve guidance and help, and you don't have to do things alone, and that somebody is looking out for you. Like, you have to inherently know that that's happening.
Yes. And then I would say you have to quiet your mind if possible. I'm not going to say you're going to eliminate all your thoughts, because that's impossible. We're humans. But find spaces where you can create a space of stillness and quietness, so you can not only hear yourself, because your guides are going to talk through you, not at you. So that's one thing to always remember. It might be that little nudge, it might be that little intuition that kind of comes through. It might be that, your body's reaction to some situation or a person. So you kind of have to be able to tune in into all of that to really listen to how they are speaking to you. Or you can just ask them too direct. It's like, hey, can you send me a sign? But then be open to actually to see that, and not just like disregard it or discard it.
Yeah.
But just be open and say, hey, can you show me that you are, around me? And
Yeah.
they will find a way to kind of connect with you.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing.
I think that's a good way to call them in, like asking for signs from them, because then it kind of validates like, oh, they're paying attention, like they're with you. One thing that when I was like, debating on moving to Miami or not, I was commuting from Mountain View, so it would be like an hour each way, and I would see a lot of different types of cars. And like, okay, if I see a yellow car, because I don't see a yellow car too often, then that means I'm meant to move. Or if I see like a blue car, I'm going to get a promotion soon, or whatever it is that you're trying to call in. And then I started seeing, maybe this is like just manifestation 101, or like what you think about, you attract. But I think like your spirit guides can definitely send you messages by asking them, like, if I am meant for this job, or if I am meant to move, or if, kind of an if then statement, like, please show me a sign in the form of a purple zebra. How often do you see that? Or like, make it kind of unique to you, so that you feel like it like is like an aha, like light bulb moment of like, oh, okay, this is kind of validating.
Yeah. And for people that have a hard time maybe asking for a physical or a tangible sign, you can also do it before you go to sleep, and ask your guide to show you, or I don't know, whatever it is that you need help with in your dreams. Just ask for some sort of either communication or a sign in your dream space, because I think also in our daily lives, we're so cluttered.
True.
With so much other people's energy and information, that sometimes it might be hard for those guys to come through. And even if you see the sign, you might not even recognize it, because it has happened to me so many times.
Oh, yeah.
But in your dream space, it's a space where you are open to receive it without any judgment. So that's also a nice space to ask. Just right before you go to sleep, you can pray it, you can ask for guidance, so they can come in your dream. It might not come like right at that night, but just kind of like pay attention the following nights if you kind of like see anything or you feel anything, and just kind of really, you can write it down and see what comes up. I'll be very curious to see if anyone will try this.
I might try tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know what comes up. I'm curious to hear stories about it, you know. So I think that's one way to connecting with them. But I think most importantly is just realizing that we do have a support team and that you're not alone in this journey. And I get a lot of people that also ask me, well, what about my deceased ones?
Oh, yeah, that's another good question.
Yes, are they also spirit guides? And I'm going to say more in a way, no.
Yeah.
I feel like deceased, they might have communication, but I don't see them exact as spirit guides.
Not in the sense of like different types of like energies or entities. I see like, I think people have died, like my grandma, she'll come and give me information. What I still think it's her information. It's not really mine.
Yeah. Well, I think spirit guides, they come to with a specific intention.
Mm-hmm. They don't have their own personal agenda.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say no. And I mean, and I do see it, you know, when I'm giving people energy readings, I might see like a deceased one that might come through. It might have some communication sometimes, although I'm not a medium, just kind of want to throw that out there too, you know, but sometimes there might be communication that wants to come through, but they're not like there to kind of guide the person. It's more so just to communicate their own information.
Yeah. Or like your guides, that's how I see it too. Like your guides, you know, they don't have that personal agenda from like being alive. As maybe at one point they could have been, who knows, but their agenda is to make sure you receive the guidance that you're supposed to receive in the moment, very like neutrally and helpful towards you specifically, like without like some secret thing that they need to accomplish, or it's more neutral.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out because that type of question, it can I get asked quite often. But hope you guys found this conversation interesting. And do you have spirit guides? Do you see them? Has anyone ever told you what they look like? Or I would love to hear about people's spirit guides if they have any sort of communication connection. So please feel free to share your stories. And if you have any other questions for us or any topics that you would like us to talk about, please send us a message. If you enjoyed this episode, share with your friends, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us, you know, to expand this community. So thank you so much for spending time and energy, or sharing, I want to say. Share your time and energy with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to catch you on the next episode of Psychic Girls Next Door.